All
Hi,
right.
everyone.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel discussion, Raising Bilingual Children, as part of our Hispanic Heritage Celebration with the Grand Rapids Public Library. My name is Madison. I'm a children's librarian with GRPL, and I'm going to be moderating our event this evening. So this event will be in English and maybe a little bit of Spanish. But after the live event, we will upload the recording on our YouTube channel where you can enable closed captions in your preferred language. So please talk to us during the event using the comment section below. We will pass those comments to the panel through the discussion, and we will have a few minutes at the end of the program too dedicated to anything that we missed there. My colleague Osvaldo is here too from GRPL today, and he'll be jumping in to provide Spanish translation if needed, and also to help bring in your questions. So Oz is going to give this introduction in Spanish too, in case we have any Spanish speakers tuning in.
Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Mi nombre es Osvaldo, soy bibliotecario de la Librería Pública de Grand Rapids. Este programa va a ser completamente en inglés. Ahora, si desean ver el programa luego con subtítulos en español, el video se va a ser transmitido a nuestro canal de YouTube, donde pueden poner los subtítulos en español para que así puedan ver la programación.
Thanks, Oz. We are also joined today by Bree Strayer, Family Literacy Director from the Literacy Center of West Michigan, who will be in the comments section to answer your questions there, and who will also be joining us at the end of the program to answer questions and provide resources too. So we are going to go ahead and dive right in. Today, we are hosting a panel of parents and teachers and community members to discuss the benefits and challenges of raising bilingual children. And today, when we're talking about bilingual, we're talking about Spanish and English speakers. We hope that we're speaking directly to and with parents and caregivers of bilingual children, because our goal is to provide space for this really important discussion and to help caregivers find support and resources. So our panelists this evening have a wide range of experiences with bilingual children, and at this time, I'd love for them to introduce themselves. So Marissa, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Okay. Hi, I'm Marissa Doletsky. I'm a bilingual speech language pathologist, and I work at Rockford Speech Therapy. It's in downtown Rockford. I work with a wide range of bilingual children, primarily in Spanish, but I work with other languages as well. And I have worked with, yes, that's it. Sorry.
No, thank you. Maria, you're up.
Hola. My name is Maria Krasek. I am a parent, and I also homeschool parent. And I also instructor for my Spanish connections. My Spanish connection is tutoring service in Spanish and English for those who need help with the language and learning the language. I have worked with younger students. My younger student is 19 months and my older student is 85. So it's never too late to learn a second language. And I'm thankful that you guys asked me to join this panel.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Erica?
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Erika Soto. I am an educator at Grand Rapids Public Schools, currently working for the Museum Middle and High School. I am also the president of Blend, Business Leaders Linked to Encourage New Directions. I'm joining this panel today, both as a bilingual educator and a mother of bilingual children. And I'm excited to be here. I'm passionate about being able to bring awareness to these causes, especially because they directly impact my life and the experiences of my family. So thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you. Carlos?
Good evening. My name is Carlos de la Barrera. I'm the principal at Southwest Academia Bilingue. I have been a principal at Southwest for the past 5 years, for the elementary, the middle, and the high school. I'm originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Buenas tardes a todos. Me llamo Carlos La Barrera, soy director de la escuela de Southwest. He sido director de la escuela por los últimos 5 años y soy de Buenos Aires, Argentina. Muchas gracias a todos por estar con nosotros. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. Nancy?
Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy, and I am here today as a parent of bilingual children raised in a Spanish-only household. So I'm kind of here to share my experiences and what it was for me to be raised with only Spanish-speaking parents, and now trying to raise my children to be bilingual as well. I work for the Grand Rapids Public Library, and I'm also passionate about bringing services to the Spanish-speaking community. So I'm excited to be here this evening with you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. So this evening, we're going to be discussing several different facets of raising and educating and working with bilingual children. We're going to start our conversation off by discussing some of the myths and misconceptions that people have about bilingual children. So I would love to hear, what are some of those common myths, and can you correct some of them for us? And just some of the things that come to mind right away are, kids who are spoken to in 2 languages are going to be confused, or they're going to have a hard time reading, or they won't be able to learn as quickly, things like that. So.
Well, I think as a parent, I would like to share. I am from Mexico City. And so being Mexican to me was very important to share my language, my native language with my children. I have 3 young boys. Yes, I'm married and my husband's Polish. So that's where you see the last name Krasek. Many people don't think I speak Spanish because of the last name. But I found that it was difficult for when I started raising my children in the community, of course, where I was raising my children. And one of them was with the doctors. When they check the growth and development on the children. He's speaking many words per, a certain age. But it got to a point there was a concern for the doctor that my son wasn't speaking as much, my first child. And I say, well, he says, well, he's kind of delaying his speech. I'm like, is he? I don't know why. And he says, do you speak to him all the time? Todo el tiempo, right? All the time. But he didn't really, at that moment, I don't think he realized that I was using both languages with him. And then he needed some time to process that and to reply. And I think that's what many people think, that the kids are delayed in speech because they have another language. And I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong to think of that. So that's one of the things that my concern is not knowing what it's like to be bilingual and assuming that it's wrong in the beginning because the child is not speaking. And I think it's understanding more than anything what it takes. So
Yeah.
That's one of the concerns I have.
I'm wondering, Marissa, since that directly relates to speech, would you consider jumping in there and sharing?
Yeah, I just didn't want to talk over her or anything. But yeah, when she was talking about that, I unfortunately hear that quite a bit from families. And it is really common with bilingual children where they're either under-identified of having a communication disorder or over-identified. So they're labeled as having a communication disorder when they're simply just learning 2 languages, which is really unfortunate. And that's something that I see quite a bit, or I have some families that I work with where their primary language in the home is Spanish, and then they're learning English in schools. And because they have a communication disorder, they're told to stop speaking to them in Spanish since they're having trouble. And that actually is not something that they should be doing. It's actually way more helpful for the child to continue in both languages. And I see a lot, like much more progress with the child if they continue in both languages that they were learning, especially if Spanish was their first language, if that was their language that they learned for the first few years of their life before they started learning English. So yeah, that's unfortunately something that I see quite a bit. And then also with being bilingual, I feel like a lot of times they'll look at one language, either in Spanish or English, but not look at both languages. So if they're saying dog in English and they're saying perro, then that's 2 words, not just 1 word. So That's what I see quite a bit too. So they'll be like, oh, they only know like 20 words, and actually they know 20 words in English, but they know hundreds of words in Spanish. So that is something I unfortunately see quite a bit, and that's why I am trying to trying to make sure that when children are assessed, they're assessed in both languages, not one or the other language.
I also wanted to add to that with my younger students who are taking classes in Spanish with me, parents also have had some children who they are having some speech delay and they're getting therapy. So it's just really cute to hear from the parents saying, Maria, guess what? I say, what? Well, you know, I'm taking so-and-so to speech therapy. And I say, yeah, well, when the therapist asked him to say the colors in English, he started saying them in Spanish. And then the therapist says, well, he doesn't know them in English, but he knows them in Spanish. And it's amazing how the kids can relate to Spanish because it's short sounds. It's easier. And it makes it simple for them to choose that over the English, I imagine.
I'd also like to add, just in my experience in being an educator and also just understanding the different cultures, you know, America in general and in the country that we live in, unfortunately, speaking another language outside of English is looked up as, you know, you're not smart. And that's true from infancy all the way to adulthood. Anybody who comes here from another country who may have a strong, thick accent when they're trying to say something may not say it correctly and automatically is dismissed. And I think that's where we cut ourselves short when folks decide to be ignorant and not understand how hard it was to learn the English language. Because I'm an English speaker and there's still some words that I still don't know how to spell or say. You know?
Oh, Erica, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear you. Do you mind maybe giving a test there?
Are you able to hear me?
I
There we
am.
go.
Yep.
Okay, my
All right,
apologies.
go ahead and continue.
My apologies. I was saying, think of the intelligence that it takes for someone to come from a whole nother country and not only adapt to new customs and norms, but also then take on a whole nother language. And then, you know, be able to communicate. And a lot of times people don't have a lot of time to learn languages. They're just thrown and immersed into a whole completely other culture and language that they were never raised with. So just the misconception altogether that someone is not intelligent because maybe their accent is too strong, or they may think in Spanish and speak in English, is extremely disappointing. But you know, that's why it takes folks like us in who can understand and who can be that representation in those spaces to really say, hey, you know, no, it took a lot for that person to be here. It took a lot for them to even be able to learn this and communicate. And we should respect that and honor that and not treat it as if, you know, this person is any less intelligent or can hold a conversation any less just because they're not saying the words the way that you're used to hearing them. So that was my 2 cents.
You know, I agree with you, Erica, because my older son, as he grew up, his classmates kind of separate him from the way of him speaking. And so they will make comments of, oh, you know, he speaks different because, and so those comments did not make my son feel comfortable. Those comments make him feel separated from the group. And it shouldn't be that way. I think if we share some kind of awareness to the community, where teaching parents to the diversity in our community is so important, and they're not less or different than anybody else. I think that is the biggest thing. It begins at home. So if we can teach, if the parents understand the diversity in our community and they teach their kids how important is that, then these children should make a difference in the classroom. These children should be welcoming the student better, in a better way, and not make him feel uncomfortable.
I think it's very important to create that in the community, but I think it's also important to create that same how do you say it, like professionals, so that they also understand, because as I was raising my first son, we primarily spoke Spanish, so he was learning his Spanish. Then he was, what his teacher said, he was behind in school because his speech wasn't up to, you know, the levels of everyone else that just spoke English in his class. So then we were referred to professionals who, after maybe the second or third, discouraged us from teaching him also Spanish at the same time. Told us that it was that was the reason why he was way behind in his speech and he was falling behind in school. So, you know, like, what do you, as parents, what do you do when you have a professional tell you this is the problem? As parents, you want nothing but the best for them. Like I said, being raised for me in a household where it was primarily it was only Spanish with my parents, I was also falling behind in school. Had issues with a lot of kids, you know, making fun of you because your accent, because you can't speak English like the rest of us. So yeah, I think that that's very important in the community, in schools, but also to the professionals, because as parents, when we don't know any better, they are the ones that we look up to, that we believe. And so they are the ones telling us, this is the problem, that you are raising bilingual children, then we stop. And now with my second, after we had our second child, we decided that that's not the route we wanted to take. We didn't want her falling back in school because of what these other adults had told us. And so now she primarily only speaks English, and we are having trouble to get her to speak Spanish. So it's a struggle.
So I will chime in. I think in connection with everything. First of all, I would like to make sure we look into research, look at really evidence. What is it showing? And when you look at research about dual language schools where we teach intentionally two languages, students in dual language schools across the nation are outperforming their peers, monolingual peers. So when you see what you perceive as a delay at the beginning of their first grades, that's normal. I mean, think that those students are doubling all the processing every time they speak, they read, they listen, and they write. I mean, they have to, like you were saying, where it's not only double the vocabulary, for example, put it that way, it's also comparing sentence structure. All these processes in the brain that we do when we speak are so complicated and so challenging. They have to do in two languages. So we are forcing our students to think and process information, double the processing that in monolingual. So that's when we see the evidence when they get to middle school, they outperform their peers in English. So you look at all this data, and it will show you it's a huge, huge difference and advantage that those bilinguals will have when you get at the middle school. I think the mistake is sometimes thinking that because they're not performing that well in the lower grade levels, that's a deficiency and that will put them behind. No, they are doing so much work. It is so challenging that it is important not to give up and really continue with that. And I will always refer anyone, go and look at evidence, look at, those many research papers are out there. They will show you, they are printed and published for many years, and they show you in graphs very clearly how different, how more advantage they have when they get to the middle school and higher. So I would say, yes, it's not like they are not even, when Erika, you were saying, well, you know, the perception is that maybe they are, because they speak with an accent or they have trouble with the language when they're kids, they are perceived as not being as smart. Well, trust me, they're turning to be much smarter than anyone else. You just need to give them a little time because you are doubling the work. It's like you will send a monolingual with one assignment, a bilingual, you're sending them with 2 assignments at the same time. So every time they go home, they have to double the work that a monolingual. So that little brains are developing so much at much higher level. You just need to be patient and look at those results.
I agree with what Carlos said. As myself, as a student, when I was a kid and I would come home with a homework that was in English and I would need help from my parents, I had to translate a little bit of that homework to my parents so that they'd be able to tell me that 2 + 2 is 4 and so on. So it's a little bit of a learning experience that till this day, I still struggle with words and vocabulary, and I still learn English. I'm still learning Spanish, so it's kind of like an adventure, right? However, I do have a question from Andrea Nescantu on Facebook to Marisa that she's asking, do you ever see students that have a speech issue, pronunciation in one language and not the other?
So no. So if there is truly trouble with sounds and articulation, it will be in both languages. So a lot of times when I'm assessing a child in English and Spanish, I look at first off, what is influencing it? So a lot of Spanish sounds when they're spoken in English can have influence, just like English when you're going to Spanish can have influence. So if they're truly having a trouble, they would have trouble in both languages. So there are sounds in English and Spanish that are shared, and those are the sounds that I would look at. There's also different structures. So Spanish, because it's another language, is the structures and the sounds that are allowed together are very different than English. So that's also something I look at. But if it's a true communication disorders, whether it's sounds or whether it's language, it's going to be in both languages, not one or the other.
Thank you, Marisa.
Carlos too has started us talking about some of the great benefits of bilingualism, and we, in talking about some of these myths and misconceptions, have already highlighted some of those things, which is like increased vocabulary and an improved performance later down the road. Are there any other educational and emotional benefits that you feel like are worth highlighting for bilingual children?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's so obvious if you just think of their future, college and career. College, well, they already get APs without any effort. So, their career, their college or university 4 years maybe be turning into 3.5. That also translates into money. I mean, because it ends up being less expensive. It also gives them an advantage because those students who are taking an AP class are going to be considered for college admissions and will have priority over those who did not take any APs. But the other thing is the career. I mean, what are the options, the opportunities they have now? Jobs, bilingual jobs, they're in so much demand, and there are no really people who are really ready for that, because we abandon the idea that being bilingual, it is an asset. And so we are struggling. We can't find just teachers who are bilingual. It is extremely difficult, and this is all nationwide. But it's also, we're saying job market, but also if in a dual language program, you not only learn to be bilingual, biliterate, but also culturally competent. So that gives you an edge in which you have a much better understanding of society, culture, and everything. So And again, is something that as the children develop these skills, they're so much well prepared to for the future career.
Right. I would like to add to that. So when it comes to like the educational and emotional benefits, I know I mentioned a little bit earlier, but that representation matters. There are, and just like Carlos was saying, there's such a lack of bilingual educators in spaces where, you know, when my students see me, they're like, "You speak Spanish? I can communicate with you. You know, buenas tardes," and it's like almost a sigh of relief that there's somebody who they can relate to in one way or another. They can say a phrase, and you know, culturally they may say something in Spanish, or you know, I can laugh about it, and they'll, you know, and you know, there are just, when you're in that space and you're able to be somebody that they can see themselves in you. They want to see more, and they want to see themselves in those spaces. And so, you know, they know how hard their parents work. They know how hard it is to, you know, like Carlos was saying, go home and do double the work. And they want to see, okay, what is it worth it? Like, is it worth me holding on to this super important part of myself? And the answer is yes, like yes, because we need more people like you know, and every time I'm with my bilingual students, I'm like, you know, be a teacher just like me. I want to be your coworker one day. You know, I'm always encouraging them. And if you don't want to be a teacher, then what, you know, be a great artist. We need more people like you. So planting those seeds is so super important when you're in those spaces as well. And I don't take that responsibility lightly at all. And absolutely being able to be, you know, more professionally rounded. You know, so many other countries around the world speak more than one language. I really feel like it's our country here that frowns upon it so much, when it's like, no, like in other countries, it is a requirement to speak another language. And it is, you know, it is encouraged. It is part of the environment and part of the culture on a regular basis. And so I feel like we have yet to catch up in so many ways. But, you know, institutions just like, you know, Southwest, you know, that's why it's so important to have educational spaces where students can learn both languages, and that be a requirement for them, because, you know, the world is more than English. There's so much out there. And if we can start them from now to embrace and understand the cultures and be proud of where they come from. And maybe, you know, that one Spanish speaking teacher is the only other person outside of home that they can connect to, you know, in an educational space where they can feel safe, where they can feel like, okay, this person can communicate with mom and dad. It's not going to be so hard for me to be able, you know, to have to come home and translate my homework, like I was saying, you know, like it's just that I can connect with this teacher as well. So I think overall, you know, it's very important for, you know, emotionally and mentally for us to be that presence, and for us to be able to respect how much we need resources and support for bilingual families.
Oh, Maria, I think you need to unmute.
Clicking the wrong button. Okay, so I really feel that there's so many benefits to being bilingual. It helps our brain, especially when we get older. It helps us to be able to multitask, to have good memory. I had a student who says, Maria, if I don't practice my Spanish in a weekly basis or in a certain amount of time, I tend to forget things. I tend to just lose track of what I'm supposed to be doing. And why it was amazing how important it was for her to continue to use her Spanish when English is her primary language. So it's amazing what it does to our brain, cognitivity. And you know, it has been proved as one of the ways to prevent early Alzheimer's. So it is amazing. Another thing too is the good feeling that if you're bilingual, you can connect with twice as big as the community. You can reach out to more people. You can help others. There's no better feeling than to know that you have connected one person with another, or one person with a service. Be there to help. And another thing is it boosts your confidence. When you, as a student, I think there's nothing for the students in high school, there's nothing better than confidence. When you're up in front of the class, be prepared. And when you know 2 or 3 languages, you are much better speaker. You are much better presenter in front of a class. And that confidence is so important for these young men and girls. It's amazing. So, yeah.
Thanks, Maria. Oz, are you seeing anything come through in the comments that you wanted
Actually,
to?
yes. So I had a question in Spanish. So I will first say it in Spanish and then I will translate it into English. So Marisol García is asking, ella pregunta, ¿qué problemas tiene un estudiante de primera generación que quiere ir a la universidad? ¿Cómo el lenguaje y la cultura hacen la diferencia y hacen más difícil que nuestros hijos asistan a la universidad? So Marisol Garcia is asking, what problems does a first generation college student have when they go to the university? And how does language and culture make a difference and makes it more difficult for our children to be able to reach higher education or universities?
So I don't know if you want me to just give my opinion. Could you ask Marisol if she speaks English or too, I guess? Is only Spanish. Otherwise, I would translate it to Spanish after. I think it is important to keep in mind that equity is not, we are not there yet. So when we are talking and looking at admission tests, for example, we are seeing them all in English, yeah, and they are also, if you look at the content, is not it's not appropriate for other cultures, students from other cultures. I have seen myself those tests and have taken them, and I really understand how someone who is not really from this culture it will have a hard time. So when you're measuring how much you know, knowledge, how smart you are, you know, those tests are not going to show how smart you are. They're not going to show how much you know, because they are focused on one specific race and culture. And I'm not saying that's with malice, it's just we need to continue working on this equity, and this is an ongoing effort that we have to do. And it's nice to see that it is in the front line right now in education, but we still need to be aware of that yeah, that's not equity, but that doesn't mean that the students are not well prepared, not smart, and they don't have the knowledge. It's just the tools we're using are not they don't follow equity, and that's what we're looking for.
She did answer on the comment section. She does speak English, so
Okay,
she got your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisol.
I think too, everyone here is touching on things that fall under our next set of questions. So I want to raise this topic of bilingualism and identity and culture. And so when we were talking about hosting this panel, we were having a discussion with some of our bilingual staff. And, you know, some people shared that either because they or their children look like Latinx or Hispanic, that people assume that their whole family is bilingual, or that there are certain assumptions, and then there's shame if that is not true, or that there's, you know, there's just such a big tie between being bilingual and your identity and how you feel connected to other people. And so I'm just wondering if other people can share their experience with that.
I like to maybe share a little bit of mine. Like I mentioned before, we're having trouble teaching my daughter now Spanish, right? Because we started with English only after what we were told by professionals. And yeah, everyone looks at her and assumes she speaks perfect Spanish. And then when they find out she doesn't, then they shame her. And then they shame me, and then they shame my husband. They're like, but you know, you being Mexican and speaking perfect Spanish, how is it that your daughter can't? She can hardly understand it. So it's always that just assumption of like, you speak Spanish and you're raising your kids and they must speak perfect Spanish. Also, apart from perfect English. So we get that a lot. I think even in school, automatically just trying to put her into certain classes because they assume she has trouble with her English and not her Spanish. So, yeah.
I'd like to add to what Nancy is saying too. And, you know, I completely relate to that. And also, but it doesn't just come from people who don't speak Spanish who automatically assume, you know, when they see, well, oh, you're a Spanish speaker, your kids must speak perfect Spanish, and then feel away. But it also comes from our family and our you know, the people who were raised with, oh, tú no sabes español, entonces, no, es tan americana, or, you know, she's too good, she's Americanized, you know, or, you know, so we get it from both ends. And, you know, I wish it would stop, but unfortunately, culturally, we get it from both ends. So navigating that is something that is important for us to teach our children, to say, hey, you know, if you don't say something perfectly, that's okay. You don't have to subscribe and be, you know, the perfect Latino child, or, you know, the perfect Spanish speaking child. You know, it just, you are who you are, you know what you know, and we'll keep learning along the way, and keep encouraging you. I think that it's important for us to be able to kind of take those things kind of with a grain of salt. I know it's hard, because it does put like that shame on you, like that guilt of like, oh, well, what are they saying? Esta no sabe español na. This person doesn't know Spanish, you know, and then they want to kind of dismiss you or your children if they're not speaking as perfectly as they should be, quote unquote. So yeah, I could definitely relate to that, and even in my own identity, just, you know, because I was raised in Puerto Rico for a few years when I was a child. And so, you know, even coming from the States to Puerto Rico as a kid, and immersing myself into the culture, and you know, I spoke Spanish a lot better than my sisters did. And so I saw my older sister struggle a lot going to school in Puerto Rico because they knew more English. And so it's kind of like the reverse of what students would probably feel here. So, you know, I just think we just have to be mindful and respectful of, you know, not everybody's going to speak it perfectly. And, you know, if they are, or if they do or don't, doesn't make them any less Latino, doesn't make them any less bilingual or bicultural, or, you know, it is what it is. It's just that the language that just needs to be a little bit stronger, or not. And if they don't speak Spanish for the rest of their life, then they don't. And we have to be okay with that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also one of the things you said, Erica, about like shaming them or making fun of them because they don't pronounce the words like we would. I think that's also become an issue where, like, oh, she wants to learn, but as she's learning, she's gonna maybe not roll her R's like we do now, or just not pronounce things the same way. And then it's also like, oh no, you don't say it like that, you know, like you say pelo, it's like perro. So then that makes her feel like, well, maybe I just shouldn't try anymore, because then she sees people making fun of her, and that discourages them from moving on and wanting to really learn.
I wanted to share the experience with my sons. One of my purpose as a parent was that my children will learn my native language. That was the reason why I started to teach Spanish, because I wanted my children to become bilingual by the time they reach a certain age. We know that all of our children are different. Some are good in certain subjects, some are not. And that is one of the things to recognize them for the gift that they have, each one of them. And, you know, my first son is a reader, so he loves to read. Second one does hands-on things. And my third one, he's just all over the place. So that makes a big difference, you know. And but one thing as a parent, I told my sons, doesn't matter what, how the word comes out. It may not sound correctly for the Spanish speakers, but you try your best, because that's you never give up. You give up, you stop learning, and then just keep trying. And it's just such a rewarding thing when they come and say, "Mom, I helped so and so at work, and I did it in Spanish. Mom, I sold this in Spanish." And you know, they're so excited to be able to do something with a second language. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You try to connect, you try to reach out and help. And that's what it's about. And I said, don't stop. Own it. This is where you come from. This is what you were raised with. This is yours. Take advantage of it. And I think that's important. As parents, we need to reassure them that it's okay to make mistakes, but we learn from the mistakes. I'm still learning English. I don't know at all. And I still make mistakes. Now they're the ones that correct me in English. And I'm not afraid, I'm not ashamed. I just go, okay. I just laugh and I keep trying. So I think that's important to encourage the children.
Yeah, and I would like to comment, because Nancy, when Nancy, you were commenting about maybe what happens with many of our students, that they are kind of embarrassed of being speaking another language, or being assumed that they speak another language. And that happens to certain demographics, which are the Hispanics. Because when you go to a school, which is dual language school one way, which means is not, you don't see Hispanics, for example, you see mostly white, they're so proud of speaking two languages. They're so proud. And you go to any country, another country, and anyone who speaks two languages, I mean, wow. I mean, you know more than the rest. So I think that brought a little bit of my perception. That is what we see in our schools, is when you have a large population of Hispanics, they wanted to assimilate. They wanted to be accepted in the majority. And so they want to resign to anything that connects them or identifies them with the Hispanic population and culture. And you can see that in our scores. When you look at our scores, when the students are assessed on summative assessments, standardized assessments, they might do very good. When they're assessing Spanish in speaking, those scores go down like crazy. And at the same time, the same students can read at a high level, but they're embarrassed to speak up, to speak in Spanish. And they start losing that oracy based on that stigma of being associated with Hispanics. And I think this is what you hear, we heard that many times in the media also, labeling the Hispanics as something that is inferior, something that, So that's, I think, what we need to work on, making sure they feel proud of who they are, and making sure they understand that they, having another language is an asset, it's not a deficiency. But I think we need to break that, especially with teenagers. It is difficult because they want it to belong and they want it to be Americans, and they are. But because they look Hispanics, they try to overbalance that by deflecting anything that is Spanish related or correlated or associated with. So I think that we need to work on that in order to really move forward and have them succeeding in the language, because otherwise it's a struggle. I mean, they don't want to speak in Spanish because they don't want it to be associated with the Hispanics.
For sometimes we have, am I muted? No. Sometimes we have the opposite side, right? We have the families who are, have the children in Spanish immersion. These children are showing their bilingual skills around the Hispanic community or the bilingual academies or bilingual schools. And that's something that our Hispanic students are seeing. Well, how come he is very good in 2 languages and I don't know all that. So that is, they see a difference, and that is a disadvantage for our children, for the Latino Hispanic community, when our kids are now learning the language and they are seeing others are advancing. And I think that given the importance of becoming bilingual in our families, as a Hispanic family, it's very important because then otherwise we're going to fall behind when it comes to opportunities, when it comes to ability to connect with others. And that is important to share that information with our children. It is important to be prepared, use the tools you are given to success and be competitive. Not just here, but in the world.
Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome.
I want to open up some space to share resources for our panelists to do that. And also, if you have any resources and you're watching and you want to drop them in the comments for other people, that would be wonderful. But I'm going to start by bringing out Bree Strayer from the Literacy Center of West Michigan. She's going to come and just share some of the great things that the Literacy Center has to offer for language learners. And then we'll give a chance for some of our panelists to speak as well. Bree should be coming on in just a moment here. Hi, Bree.
Hi, thank you for having me. I've really been enjoying the discussion. The Literacy Center it's almost coming at it from a different angle in some of this, because we've been talking about bilingual parenting and kind of helping foster bilingual households. And we are here, the Literacy Center supports, in my particular program, supports parents who want to be bilingual, who primarily speak another home language and are looking to learn English. And our program very much centers on home languages, and we promote bilingualism and are very supportive of bilingual homes. But we also wanted to try to help those parents, provide tools for them in the schools to help with homework, to help call in absences, go to doctor's visits with their kids, and learn together in multi-generational learning. So we offer classes around Grand Rapids for parents at the DIS schools. They're in school locations, but also online. And we offer computers for parents that don't have them for online classes. They're starting now. So if you guys know of any parents who want to learn English and support their kids learning in that as well, then we would love to have them in our classes. And it doesn't have to be just Spanish-speaking families. We work with all languages. And I think that's something to talk about too in the panel too, thinking of languages too, that there's Chinese populations and Afghani and Congolese families here too that are also looking at some of these bilingual issues in their homes too, or opportunities, I guess I hate to call them issues, but yes, so we have classes. I will put a flyer up on the Facebook comments. If you know of anyone that would like to enroll or you are interested in classes. And we are also looking for teachers. Someone in the panel mentioned not having enough teachers and help. We are always looking for teachers too that want to work with parents.
Thank you so much, Bree. I'm going to open up to everybody else on the panel here. Are there any resources that you felt were helpful, as a parent or as an educator, that you want to share or that your organization offers?
Well, I think it's important also for parents to see the importance of budgeting for a tutoring service. I think or organizations to jump in and provide some tutoring service for the community with the specific, like literacy, the literacy center, or other volunteer communities that can help the students to be prepared for a second language. It's such a big, amazing benefit for them, maybe after school classes that can help them. Just some ideas out there that can help the students and families. Because, we also have a community that not only speaks Spanish, we have a community that speaks a dialect. And many people from different countries that speak a dialect, the first language they learn when they come to the United States is Spanish. And these Hispanic families come to learn Spanish because they feel connected. They feel connected with the community. And I think that's another thing too. It's not necessarily that the students is the primary language or secondary language, it's just that they have a dialect. And coming to the United States to learn English or Spanish is just the third language, the second language. But it's also reaching out to the community with those needs, different needs.
I wanted to add, for me, and this what was very helpful for my kiddos when they were very young. And I'm gonna give you guys a shout out because I was part of the Grand Rapids Public Library community for a while. Is even like the CDs, I would get the CDs. I would rent a bunch of DVDs, a bunch of books in Spanish from the library. And riding in my car, we would really, tengo hambre, mucho hambre. Like they would have, just even little small conversation. That was a big resource for me that helped me, beyond me speaking Spanish myself to my kiddos and, even starting those conversations. But, as a parent immediately, if you can't go to a tutor right now, the library has really great resources. And I know that because just from my own experiences, listening to different music, maybe in Spanish, different, like I said, books, audio books that you can hear in Spanish, or picture books, have them read along. YouTube has got plenty of, those little learning videos that you can put on for your kids, even if it's just buenos dias and buenas tardes y buenas noches, just getting them conversationally used to, just common phrases. That was a big thing for me and my kids. That was personally my own resource that I use. And to this day, like they're like, yo tengo hambre. They're like 12 and 11 years old now. So, those little things, a lot of repetition is key as well. And even correct without embarrassing them. If they didn't say something right, I'm like, well, the proper way to say it is this way. And, just if you are tied to your roots, try and implement more traditions and things from your own country, from your own upbringing. And I also think in the community, it's very important for more community events to happen, just like this, that celebrate and highlight our needs, and that can, have Spanish speakers and educators and leaders at the forefront that say, hey, here I am, I'm a resource, use me, let me help you, let us help each other so we can continue to grow in understanding and in equity when it comes to understanding other cultures and being able to really live and thrive together in the same community. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Erica said, and I wanted to chime in that we as a community, we like helping each other. So seek out Facebook groups, parent groups. Marisol Garcia on Facebook was just sharing that the Hispanic Center of Western Michigan, they have a youth program that helps students to fill out their FAFSAs for college. And they also have another bilingual preschool program going on, along with some navigation services for parents. So always be on the lookout for those other community members that like helping out, or other groups on social media. Also regarding FAFSA, to college through college studio it's located on the Grand Rapids Public Library. They also help out with filling up the FAFSA. So if you cannot get an appointment there, they can also find people to help you out, fill that in a couple of languages, not just Spanish. They have staff that's very varied. And if they don't have someone that speaks a specific language, they will most likely find a connection to help you out. Like I said, it's all about connections and seeking out that help and so on.
There is a lot of good resources of videos on YouTube that there's so many for any topic. I think that it's one of the hardest things as parents. Sometimes we forget that we can just type, I don't know, vocabulary for la casa. And when we type that on YouTube, there's so many different videos you can play for your children. We tend to see our children more in on the TV, on video games, but maybe we give them some time to watch educational videos for a language. You know, we have access to internet. If we don't have access to internet, going to a library where there's internet and connect there. The kids are in so many devices nowadays that they can just say, well, let's do some Spanish, you know, let's before this. And I think that is, kids are connected so much with internet nowadays that take advantage of that too. Videos are very helpful.
I wanted to also mention the app Duolingo. There's one that's like a free app that you can download on the phone, and you can start from really basic levels, you know, starting from when they're very, very young. And again, like those conversational pieces, they'll be able to hear the phrases, see the words. That's another really great resource that I've even used for my kids and for my students as well.
I would just say something is obvious. Do a language school. Why not? If you really wanted to be bilingual and just kids be bilingual, yeah, send them to I mean, they're not very common. I mean, it is I think it is great to have one close to our neighborhood, and why not taking advantage of it? Now we will put a note there also saying students who are applying for kinder first grade, they don't need to take an exam or anything. It doesn't matter what is the background or language, they are fine. But starting in second grade and up, then they would have to take an admission test, because the classes are going to be already like math in Spanish or science in Spanish. So they will give from fourth grade up, they're 50-50. So 2 classes will be in Spanish, 2 in English. So if they don't have the language, there's no way they can succeed. So, but I think it is mostly what is important is that the parents understand how valuable it is for the students to be bilingual, biliterate, and also culturally competent. Once the parents understand that, then they will be, you know, they will send them to our school for sure. But again, it's not because it's my school or not, it is because if not, it is sad to see so many parents with children who are Hispanics, and these students cannot pass the test. And it's a basic test and they cannot pass it because they never had that experience or emphasis or you know, motivation to learn the language, and then it is too late. So I would encourage parents with, especially with the little kids, to send them to a dual language and really to understand that it is an asset. It is something that's going to make them smarter, and they will give them so many opportunities in the future, so many opportunities, college, career, whatever they choose to, or both, that I would encourage all parents to think about that.
Thanks, Carlos. We're coming to the end of our program. I just wanted to check in quickly before we wrap up. Marissa or Nancy, did you have anything you wanted to share for resources before we close?
I don't think I have any other ones, and the ones that I think were already mentioned. I think Erica mentioned the ones I had in mind.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Thank you. Marissa?
I don't think I have any specific resources, but if anyone is wondering about their child, or if there were some confusion with bilingualism, I'm happy to answer those questions. I know that everyone on the panel talked about how there are some confusion and maybe even some other professionals that don't have all of the research. So I will have something on my website soon that talks about red flags for having communication disorder if your child is bilingual. So hopefully I'll have that on my website soon, but I'm also happy to chat with any parents just real quick and if they have a quick question. So.
Yeah, Oz, did you have any questions that you wanted to bring in, or are we?
No questions, just a couple of comments. For example, Ruben E. Medina says, this is a great opportunity to open the mind to others with a different worldview, and so on.
Well, I second that. That's a great note to close on. So I just want to thank all of our panelists for coming here, sharing your stories and your views and your experiences, and also to our participants in the comment section, thank you for being here. There is so much more to this discussion, but I'm really glad that we were able to just, start here and scrape the surface tonight. Please be sure to check out the rest of our events happening for Hispanic Heritage at the Grand Rapids Public Library. If you missed any virtual events, you can always find them on our YouTube channel. And like we said, you can put those captions on in any language that you like. But thank you all so much for being here. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Adiós.